okay, you know.
Get in there, boy.
Son of a bitch.
Well, welcome back to the Rivalry Podcast. I'm Stos. This is Joey, and we have a special guest today, Coach James Nielsen. Coach, thank you for joining us today. Just tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you have a lot of playing and coaching experience in the South Bay area. Just kind of introduce yourself to everybody that's listening.
Good. I go by Jim Nielsen, and my nickname was Big Thunder for the rebounding prowess that I had as a player centuries ago. When I was playing. I was on a very, very good high school team. In fact, at one time we were rated number 1 in the state, North Torrance. We ended up, I think, number 4 in the state that year. And we had 4 Division I athletes on our team. And then I went to Washington State and played there. Had a really solid career. I wouldn't say it was great. I wouldn't say it was poor, but a nice solid career. And then I got into coaching, and I started with these names that I think are probably a little bit dated for some of you guys, but all of them are in the Hall of Fame. I coached, first job was, my coaches in college were Judd Heathcote. You may know him because he was Magic Johnson's coach at Michigan State. Dale Brown, who coached me, and he was an assistant, and he went to Louisiana State University, and of course he's famous for bringing in Shaquille O'Neal. And then George Raveling, who got my first coaching job under. George was a Washington State coach, Iowa coach, USC coach. He got into an automobile accident, and then he became a head of all of Nike basketball worldwide. And I was coaching at Redondo High School when he got that, and he helped me, and we became the premier, I wouldn't say the premier, but among the top 10 schools in the state for high school basketball for an extended period of time. And I'll see, when I took over, the Redondo basketball was extremely need of an upgrade. And when I left, it was, as I said, one of the premier programs in the state. So
That's really
that's
cool,
my coaching background. Yeah.
Sounds like you have quite the
And I
track
coached some
record there,
NBA
Coach.
players. Eric Lechner had a 14-year NBA career. Alex Acker played 2 years with the Detroit Pistons. Dropping names and all that is important. What's really important, what you learn from these guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I've had a master's degree from each one of them in coaching. So that's my background.
How did you kind of get into basketball? Like, was basketball always your favorite sport as a kid? Did it kind of just come to you one day? Tell everybody kind of how you became a basketball player.
I was a huge kid. I'm 6'8" and weigh 250 right now.
Jesus.
And as a freshman and
I'm
I'm
sorry.
76
I'm sorry.
years old.
I was
Yeah.
not expecting that. My fault.
Yeah. As a freshman in high school, I was 6'6" and weighed 230, and I was on a varsity team that ended up in the open division equivalent in a high school as a starter with a 7-footer, and we played in the open division championship against Long Beach Poly, and we didn't win it, but we were there. And my first sport that I loved was baseball, and I was pretty good, and
Man after my
football,
own
which I
heart.
was really good at. And I got to high school, and it is a regret of mine because I was so dominant in basketball as a freshman. I didn't play football or basketball, which looking back was a huge mistake. And I would recommend it. And my own sons ended up playing all 3 sports. And I would recommend this idea of, just playing one sport is kind of where it's at right now, but I don't like it, and I think that we should encourage kids to play, especially in high school, because the chances of playing in the pros are astronomically small.
Yeah, they are, and it kind of puts you in a box if you just stick to one sport, which is like it's good for a lot of people if you feel like you can go to the next level, but it's definitely cool as a kid to kind of get to experience all of the sports. Like I know my grandpa had a similar experience where he went to go play football at Colorado State. But they when he signed with Colorado State, or when he not signed, but when he like committed to go to Colorado
Right.
State, they told him he could play baseball as well. And
Yeah.
then when he got there, they had
No
him
can
at
do.
quarterback, and then they didn't let him play baseball.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah. Been
so
down
he
that road
yeah.
many times. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I love talking about basketball, coach. So kind of diving into well, I do have one more question for you. You know Paul
Sure.
Westphal pretty well, don't you?
More than well. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
we've been friends. He's gone now, and
Mm-hmm.
we were friends from, I'd say, 10 years old and on. And he was voted as the top player in California for the 20th century.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's completely deserving, but he's right there with anybody. And besides being a phenomenal athlete and a phenomenal player, is even a better, or was a better human being and person. And I was fortunate enough to play with him in traveling teams, or not traveling teams, but just local school teams.
Mm-hmm.
And then coach with him at Pepperdine University for 5 years, and help his son in many ways as well. So yeah, he was special.
No, it's really cool. And coach, I kind of wanted to ask you, I mean, we got to talk about it a little bit on the phone when we last spoke, but
Right.
where do you think the direction college basketball is going with all this NIL stuff and the fact that we have players from the NBA now coming back? Well, not players from the NBA, but players that got drafted to the NBA coming back to play college basketball. Like there's a lot of crazy stuff going on there. I don't know if you kind of have an opinion on all of it.
I do. It's going down the toilet.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
if
I
they,
I agree.
yeah, if they don't fix it, it's going to get beyond repair, I think.
Hmm.
And here's why. When I was playing, and that's the dark ages, we used to get a spending stipend of $150 a month.
Hmm.
Okay, that was in 68 through 72. Wasn't
Okay.
enough. There should have been a payment where, you didn't have to literally walk around with no money in your pocket. But I also had a part-time job the entire time I was playing major college basketball, which
Mm.
is not unusual in those days. I know today it's unheard of, but it wasn't unusual. But like the SC player the other day, that I don't know if you read about him, who got kicked off the team got injured, and then he didn't go in the game, and him and Musselman got into a dispute in the locker room, and they dropped him from the Trojan team. He was making 2.9 million, and I
Jeez.
had a year. It is outrageous what they're doing, and what it's gonna kill high school basketball, because who's
Yeah.
going to recruit a high school player unless he's an absolute super to come when you've got a chance to get a transfer, and then your loyalty to that school is only as long as the paycheck's good, and
Yeah.
you're not going to get a degree in many cases, and they're going to talk a good game about having to coach, um,
Yeah.
uh, having to coach, but the coach, if you do a roster, will probably be making assistants for sure, will be making less than the players. And
Yeah.
picture that one, when the coach is looking at, well, I got to pay this guy 2.9 million and my assistant's getting 250,000, as just an example. And who do I got to cut first if they get in the fight? So I kind of really like the coach at Michigan State, and all of a sudden I've drawn a blank, and I know him like the back.
Izzo, yep.
Izzo, who actually learned his chops under Judd Heathcote, who was my most inspirational coach of all. So I think it's just, if it doesn't get it corrected, and I don't have a solution,
Yeah.
but it better get corrected, because when you're just running a minor league franchise, or what colleges are now,
Yeah. Yeah, they are.
That's what you are.
Yeah,
So
and I will
two and
say,
Division III are the only ones that are still kind of pure.
yeah, no, I agree. And look, I'm all for like students getting money, right? Like it's good that they can have money to fall back on and that they can pay their bills or whatever they need to pay. But it gets to a point when it's like when all these kids are getting shelled out millions on millions of dollars, to me, it kind of is almost starting to feel like a professional league when it's not, right? Like it's college. Joey, I don't know if you have anything you want to add on that, but
Yeah, from where I'm sitting and from what it sounds like, and the kind of thought that went through my head was how you're treating these sports, you play these sports when you're 5 years old as like a pastime. These are things to do to get out of the house and burn off energy as a child. And when you go up and up and up this ladder, you know, at the very peak of the mountain, yeah, it's a business. It's a professional business. And if you are God-given talent and have worked hard enough in your career to make it to that point, you deserve to be compensated because you get, it's a career out of it. Whereas the the payoff, I mean, even as far as when Stos and I were coming into high school and just leaving, was that you get a scholarship from these schools. These schools are bringing you on to play sports in college, and your reward was that you were debt free. You didn't have to pay. You didn't have to pay any of your debts, and that in itself is
worth a lot.
Worth
It's a
a
lot of
lot,
money.
100,000,
It's a
200,000,
lot of money.
300,000, whatever it is. Yeah.
And before that, the idea of, hey, I can use the talents of playing a sport that I've been playing since I was a kid and potentially make something more out of it. Getting that opportunity in college was like the peak of, hey, I can try to make something of myself in this sport, and I don't have to worry about paying my bills when I do it.
Yeah.
When you put, and like Stos was saying, when you start paying kids, I think that yes, they deserve to be paid, but when you start putting, because it's easy to look at it at the business side of things, like, oh, this kid is worth $2 million and this kid's worth this. But when you look at the human element of this, if you tell a kid that he's worth something, and then he has a bad season, and all of a sudden this kid who you recruited and you were speaking, the nice words to, telling him, hey, you're worth $2 million for me. You come play for me. You'll be paid a lot of money. Let's say he has a bad season. Let's say he gets hurt, and all of a sudden it's, hey, this other kid who's bigger, stronger, faster than you are, well, we have him valued higher. So we're taking away your paycheck, and then next say that kid can only rebound to $1 million. And then
if you go ahead, I want to add today in today's San Diego Tribune, Mark Zeller, who has got he follows the San Diego State Aztecs.
Yep.
I don't know if you read it today, but basically he's saying the same thing you're saying. And remember, now coaches will be kicking you out as well. There was an unwritten rule when I was playing, and remember, this is back in the Stone Age, in the 60s and the 70s.
The Dark Ages.
Yeah, the Dark Ages. Although this is one thing. I'll make an argument that the talent was every bit as good back then as it is now, but that's a whole nother issue. There was an unwritten rule that if you kept your nose clean, got your grades, 2.0, and did your work, you'd be getting a 4-year, 5-year scholarship, to make sure you got that degree so it could help you in life. And a lot of honorable coaches always felt that even if the player didn't reach his potential that they thought he had, they said, well, I recruited him. I got to live with it. And
Yeah.
I'll give you a Paul Westphal story that you will like. And this is unbelievable, but you'll be
Yeah, let's hear it.
amazed by it.
Yeah.
Well, you've heard of Steph Curry.
Hmm.
Well, in
Hmm.
high school, he was not what he was now. And Del Curry, his dad, was a friend of Westfall. And his dad called me because I was the lead assistant at Pepperdine and said, are you interested in my son? I think he's got a chance to be really good. So he sent me the tape and I said, I looked at it and I go, this kid's going to be pretty darn good. Remember,
Hmm.
Pepperdine's a mid-major. It's not UCLA, et cetera. It's a mid-major. And so I went to Paul and I said, Paul, this kid's got a real chance. And he knew Dell and he said, yeah, if Dell says he's pretty good, he's pretty good. But tell me, Jim, whose scholarship are we going to take away so we can have this kid come here? And I can't remember now if it was Steph or his older brother. I can't remember his name all
Seth.
of a sudden.
Seth.
Steph
Yeah,
Curry.
Seth.
Hmm.
And so Paul wouldn't pull the trigger because he wouldn't uh, um, pull a scholarship of a player, even though there were a couple that we made errors on. And so that's kind of the honorable guy that Paul is. And it probably cost him his job at Pepperdine, to be honest with you.
Wow.
So,
That's crazy. That is a
yeah.
crazy story. And it's
I
it's
think
yeah.
I think that in its that little snapshot is kind of what's like that's the heart and soul of these things, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
There's it's you've when you make something like this strictly transactional, you take out the emotion, you take out the want and the desire. If this coach is talking to me today about making me his star player for $2 million, and then tomorrow he has a chance to recruit an even better player, well, sorry, buddy, I'm taking the money that I promised you, and
Yeah, like the
you
loyalty
gotta
just
go
lies with the
elsewhere.
money, you know? Like
And
nobody
that's the
buys
problem with
into
making
programs.
that's the problem with making it a business because we see it in the NFL and the NBA and the MLB all the time. Yeah, it's a game, but the mantra you keep hearing is, well, it's a business. There's no loyalty to the players. There's no loyalty because it's strictly a business.
Yeah.
And you've seen that bleed into the college scene. And my worry is that when it bleeds through the college scene, it's going to drip into the high school level.
It
And
already
coach,
has.
the question I wanted to ask you because you mentioned it earlier about
Right.
how the international scene and how you sent a lot of players to Europe and you had a really great career in Europe.
Yeah.
Seeing the state of amateur basketball, high school, college, and seeing the modern trend of NBA prospects coming from Europe, coming from outside of America, being highly scouted, highly touted, coming in and big making big waves in the States. Wembanyama, Luka Doncic. You see players like that, and I can't help but think if that kind of a trend hasn't started in the dark a decade ago, 7 years ago, 5 years ago, where you've seen that, now if I have to motivate a high school player in the United States of America to play their sport with monetary value on top of it, that player is not going to have the drive to be good. Whereas in Europe, they don't pay their players. They're doing it for the love of the game. The thing I
No,
was telling
no,
Stokes,
you're not accurate that they do pay their players. They go
do
out
they?
at the club, and the ones that are coming over are um, uh, semi or partly
Hmm.
professional players, and
Yeah,
it's
like a player that played for Barcelona, or if a player played in like
yeah,
the Greek professional league, or like what LaMelo did when he went to like
yeah,
Lithuania,
yeah.
um, stuff like that. But I don't think they're getting paid nearly as much as the top college basketball players. Like I don't think I would
Mhm.
have to look up what Luka's like contract was. Luka might have had a big one just because he was actually really
Yeah.
good in the
Well, I mean, he
EuroLeague.
was phenomenal since he's been 10
Um,
years old. But
yeah.
Mhm.
they wouldn't come over if they were making less money that from Europe. But we brought over a
Hmm.
kid from Lithuania, one from Senegal, Africa, and a couple from Canada.
Yeah,
And
Canada's getting really good
yeah,
at basketball too. I mean, you got Shea who's come out of Canada. There's a
Mhm.
lot of good players that have been coming out of Canada for sure.
and they got these room, board, books, and tuition, and that was it. And they knew that Paul was a stickler to make sure that we didn't stretch any rules, which I really commend him for,
Yeah,
which
and
is
something
unheard of.
I mean, something I noticed too with this whole thing is it's like it's every sport in college now too, because like what happened with college football with Dante Moore was honestly unprecedented. So
Yeah,
he was supposed to be the second overall pick. I don't know if you can tell this might be a sore subject for Joey. He's a huge Jets fan,
That's, hey
but
man, old wounds heal.
yes,
But Dante Moore, he could have easily been the second overall pick in the NFL
sure.
draft, but because of how much money he can make in college, he declined the draft. Like, I don't remember the last time somebody was going to go second overall and they said, "No, I'm going to stay in college." I
Edie
think
from
that's
Purdue, the big 7-footer, he did that. He came back for the
he
money,
did, but he wasn't drafted second overall though.
but he was a
Like
first round draft. He was
he
going to be a
was,
first
yep.
round draft choice. So
Mhm.
yes, you're right. He wasn't second, but he was certainly a premier player that
No,
would
yeah,
get him
and
money.
I think the thing with football too is like football has so many rounds, and I think it's like when you're guaranteed to be a top two pick in the NFL, you should probably just take it because if he gets hurt this year, that's his last year in college. What if his draft stock drops to a second or third rounder? I don't know. I'm just saying
I
like
mean, you're
it's
seeing that as a perfect
yeah.
example in this year's draft. You look at Garrett Nussmeier and you look at Drew Aller. Both of
Right.
those guys were projected 1A, 1B coming into this college season, and they're both talking about day two, maybe day three picks. And so
Yeah.
you have to, and you've seen historical things like that. Like, I don't know, Stos, if you remember, but the Stanford Cardinals had a running back by the name of Bryce Love.
Right.
Hmm.
And Bryce Love, who was in the Heisman, he was in those Heisman mixes in 2015, 2016. He elects to, and as a first round running back, he elects to go back to Stanford for one more year and absolutely blows out his knee. And he was drafted as a fourth round pick by Washington, and he just
Right.
kind of fizzled out. And
Yeah.
it's those kind of stories to where it's curious to see what happens with Dante Moore because it'll be an interesting case study for this point. But for the case with Zach Edey and Coach, I want to know your opinion on this, Coach. Zach Edey, was Zach Edey a better player going into the NBA from staying that extra year in college, in your opinion?
It's hard to say one way or another because I just watched him on TV, five, six, seven times.
Mm-hmm.
Katie, I'm not Katie, that was the old coach. The coach they have at Purdue now is really good. I mean, he
Hmm.
really strong. I think he probably, I think it's a wash. I think it's 50-50. I couldn't say one way or another, but
Okay.
I wanted to bring something up that the influx of club sports in
Hmm.
not football yet, but in basketball and baseball has
Mm-hmm.
had a tremendous, in my opinion, negative effect on the American sport of basketball. I can't speak for baseball, but so many of the club coaches uh, are really inexperienced and they're doing it for a paycheck, where a high school coach and a teacher, has a long-term interest. And of course, there are high school coaches who don't fit that bill and aren't especially talented. But as overall, I think the club scene has had a detrimental effect on college basketball and high school, certainly on college basketball, because uh, they're not taught defense, they're not taught sharing the ball.
Yeah.
It's a different game.
Coach, how do you kind of deal with, because you're coaching right now, how do you kind of deal with like the highlight culture in high school? Because I feel like that's a lot of what high school is. It's like players always trying to get a highlight tape, they're trying to get recruited, they're kind of doing a lot of ISO ball. I know obviously the really well-ran programs are not really doing that as much and they're playing team basketball. So how do you kind of preach that to your players?
Your ass gets on the bench, you pull that shit again.
It's as simple as that. It's as simple as
Hey,
that.
Yeah,
you put that's the kind of quote you put on a business card or a
yeah,
postcard and you
yeah,
send it.
yeah, exactly. And the vast majority of kids, I'm an assistant coach, and now the team's over. I mean, the season's over. We had a really
Mm.
good year, but the vast majority of kids don't fit that bill of being just a show off and all that kind of stuff. What it is,
Hmm.
the fundamentals aren't
Mhm.
stress like they should be, and it's a tough gig uh, um, uh, for a high school coach who has to tell him no, or the club coach, because he's taking money from him, doesn't want to tell him no, and it's a huge difference. So, that,
So, Coach, I'd like
yeah,
to not. I want to kind of add at least add a little more context to your point because
right,
I don't know if you were so told you if you're aware, but what I do for work is I do camera. So I broadcast sports and
right,
I've done a lot of high school sports. And back in January, I got asked to do a tournament. It was like a club tournament where these teams are coming from all over the country and we're having a 4 game tournament in Arizona. And just seeing the caliber of players of like the caliber of players on the court. I mean, it was some of the most well, like each individual player had to have been some of the most talented players individually I've seen. They're all big, they're all tall, they all could shoot, they all can dunk. It was really interesting to see because some teams played really well because they were playing as a team, they were moving the ball around, and some teams weren't playing as a team. Like you could say that there is 5 individuals on the court, and those individuals might be uber talented, but they just couldn't mesh together and they couldn't learn to play off of each other.
Like
It
there's a
was
lot of
like Stowe
ISO
said,
ball.
it was a
Yeah.
lot of ISO ball from all positions, not a true point guard who's looking to pass first. And it's kind of I guess my big question to you is, do you think there is a fundamental development problem with the sport of basketball and outlook of 5, 10 years down the line, if this doesn't get fixed, how long until we see an influx of talent take over the American sports scene in basketball because we can't develop our own kids anymore?
it's already taken over. You see, when did you see? I was laughing the other night. 8 white guys on the floor. I think it was the Lakers versus, oh, who was it? And about 6 of them were foreigners, and
Mm.
that's something that hasn't happened for the longest time. I The club I'm interested in your club tournament. It wasn't a high school tournament because don't they have the high school leagues at that time for the schools, or was it a tournament of just what was the tournament based upon? Who like Go ahead.
Let me pull that information for you. I'll work on
Okay.
that while you continue.
Okay, so like when I was at Redondo, we played in Delaware, we played in Portland, and they would fly our team out there, the host
Yeah.
of the tournament, but it was our high school team. And what I did to make sure that my team wasn't poached by the other high schools and club guys, in the summer, we played as a high school team. So we might be in this club tournament, but we were there still the Redondo basketball program. And that's how I tried to keep my team together. Mater Day uh, has done a great job of that. Um, Sierra Canyon's the
Sierra
opposite.
Canyon. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, unbelievable talent at high school. I just hope it continues to get developed. It is America's game. We should keep it America's game. And what we have to do is teach fundamentals, and club coaches don't want to do that. You know,
Yeah.
they do uh, layups for 5 minutes and then let's scrimmage. And
Yeah.
So
basically,
I got the answer for you, Coach. It
okay,
was the Nike Elite Youth Basketball League.
okay. And what was the grade level?
I'm pretty sure they were high schoolers because it was the Dream City basketball event held in Phoenix, and it was the elite youth basketball schedule, and they were all high school kids because on the broadcast they were talking about how these kids had offers. I know a kid had an offer from Houston, and one of them was going to go
Mm.
play in the SEC. So these were all kids who were
Were,
five
were
star,
they
4 star
were they all on
prospects.
the, I mean, was it the same team? Because we went to Nike things too, but as a high school team. There are premier high school teams. Like we had my last year at Redondo, we had six
Mhm.
Division I players on our team. Uh, um,
Yeah, it was the schools playing. So it was
okay,
like Dream City
okay,
Christian versus Monterey Academy,
yeah,
um,
okay,
and things like that.
okay, good. So that's exactly what is happening, um, and those kind of things are rewarding, and I'm happy that a high school team can do that. But
Hmm.
I'm not in the a big fan of the club scene. So I think we've
Hmm.
Yeah.
milked that horse as long as we can or ridden it. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
and Coach, the one other thing I wanted to touch on before we kind of wrap this up for today
Okay.
was just obviously we had the Olympics for basketball in
Right.
2024, and we saw how close Team USA was to getting beat. They had to make that miraculous comeback against France, and obviously they
Right.
won and they got the gold medal.
Right.
But when we're talking about development and all these players, how close do you think these other countries like France and Canada and stuff are to catching the US when it comes back to being Olympic time? Because you look at players like LeBron, Kevin Durant, Stephen Curry, like these guys are going to be retiring soon. And I think when you look at the young players around the NBA, I would say a majority of the really good ones are from outside of the country. So I don't know. I don't know if you had any thought
Oh
process
yeah.
on that or
You guys, I don't know if you're aware, but up until 1976,
yeah.
no pros could play in the
Yeah.
Olympics. Now
Mm-hmm.
they had pros in Europe the same way they're doing it now, coming over. But America, you couldn't have been a pro. And then we got beat in 72 on that horrendous Russian play where they inbounded the ball three times. And if you ever look that up, you'll see a monster coach error. I'm getting goosebumps all over my body thinking about this. The Russians threw the ball the length of the court, and the guy caught it and put it in to win the game. It's worth looking into. Hank Iba was the coach there. He was past his time,
Mm-hmm.
and he had 7'4" Tom Burleson, and he didn't put him on the baseline, so he could had to throw over the outstretched hands of Tom Burleson. The guy was able to
Wow.
make like a quarterback pass. Uh, but and I'll give you an Olympic story you'll like too. This is straight from George Raveling. He was on the team that Michael Jordan was on, and Charles
Mm-hmm.
Barkley, as you know, was going to be on that same team. And Bobby Knight was the head coach. And George Raveling loved Knight and he loved Barkley. Well, Knight came in and he said, Mike's the best player I've ever been around. And we've got to feature him. And if we have Barkley on the team as well, we'll have two guys wanting to share the ball. And we can't have that. This is Knight's spiel. And Raveling didn't agree with it at all, but he was told he had to go cut Barkley. And uh, he did his job because that was an assistant coach's job. But if anybody wants to really know the story, that's why Barkley wasn't on the. Uh, uh, I think that was the oh, 88 Olympics or 84, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because Barkley was too fat, as was uh, the story at the time. So, uh, But Olympics, yes, we can handle with anybody, but we've got to develop them, and it's got to become a more organized effort. I think, anyways.
So, Coach, the way I think this is a fitting end for my part of this conversation with because we've talked about foreign players, the American players. I have a stat for you, and I would just like to know your thoughts off the top of your head. If I were to tell you that the last seven winners of the MVP trophy in the National Basketball Association were all foreign-born players, what do you think about that?
I think that's right. And I think that they've truly made an impact over our game. Our game has suffered from travel ball, and our game is needs to be uplifted. We've got great players. The players from Europe are great players. So I'm hoping that we can really make an effort at trying to bring team ball back into the NBA. Maybe a loss, maybe too late, but that's what I would hope for.
Now, Stos, I'm going to end my part here with a little thank you guys thank you guys for being here. Obviously, it's a special episode for us. And Stos, I have a question for you that I want you to answer. Can you tell me
Yeah.
who the last American-born player to win an MVP was?
I believe it was James Harden, right? And then it was Westbrook the year before, I believe.
Two for two. And
Okay.
that's the kind of ball content you get on the Rivalry Podcast. Anyway,
Okay.
Coach, Stos,
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
it's your
I'll
show.
close it out here. Coach, I just want to say thank you for coming onto the podcast today. I know that you really want to dive into some of the older players of the league and kind of how you think they shape today's NBA, like Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West, guys like that. And I would love to have you on for another episode so we can go in depth about all of that.
great.
Um, I think that would be really awesome because you're somebody who obviously got the chance to play alongside people like that or possibly even watch them. And it's like for me and Joey, I was born in 2002. Joey, were you an '02 baby as well?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I mean like we only have YouTube to watch. Like Michael Jordan I've only ever seen on YouTube. Jerry West I've only ever seen on YouTube. Bill Russell, like all these guys. So it'd be awesome to get to talk to somebody who got to watch them for themselves and kind of get your thought process on all that. One last thing I wanted to say before we hop off the podcast, since we were talking about USA and the world and all this sort of stuff in terms of basketball. Jason Tatum just got announced to be returning this season. Shams Charania of ESPN just posted that about 50 minutes ago. So I thought that was some cool news for some basketball fans out there. So now
Absolutely.
the title race in the East is going to get a lot tighter. You got teams like the Pistons, the Celtics, the Knicks, all those teams are trying to make a push to the NBA Finals. So it's going to be really interesting. Coach, we'll have to get you on sometime here soon too, so we can talk a little bit about the March Madness bracket as it's coming out and as we see more games. So I'm really happy you were able to join the podcast with us today, and I'm excited to have you back on.
Well, I'll leave you with homework. I
Okay,
want
yeah,
you
I would love to
to
hear
Oh
some homework.
look
no.
up
Oh
Wilt
no.
Chamberlain.
Wilt
Now, remember
Chamberlain.
this. He played 2 seasons every second of every game. He never fouled out. He averaged 50 points a game and 30 rebounds a game for two
Yeah.
consecutive seasons. And for those of you who say, well, the people he was playing against were chumps and they were old folks,
Plumbers, that's what a lot of
we've
people say.
got
They were plumbers,
we've
yeah.
got Bill
Wasn't even in black and
Russell,
white, Coach.
huh?
The TV channels were in black and white, Coach. I don't
Well,
know.
that's right. That's right. Well, they were just coming in color in the 60s. We've got Bill Russell, Zelmo Beatty, Willis Reed, Walt Bellamy, and Nate Thurman.
Nate
Remember,
Thurman.
there were only 12 teams in the NBA. So
Hmm.
there are players today, I think there are 32 teams, who couldn't make the squads
30, yeah.
start for teams today. That's what I'm saying. But under no circumstances do I want you to think that I don't appreciate the talent and level of like LeBron James and
Yeah.
Jokic and the great guard for Laker, Luca. These guys are phenomenal. And Steph Curry, my God, he's the best shooter I've ever seen.
He
So
is.
I just want you to know that do your homework. But I'll tell you one thing: when you're 12th man on your team today, could not even make us, or your starters could not even make a team back then. The league, I think, was a little more balanced than it is today. I'll leave you with that. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And one last thing, you guys are going to be successful as podcasters. You know why? You got passion. Anybody who has passion for their sport can get it done. Just remember, don't give in when people start naysaying. You got to get through that, because it's like a coach. I guarantee you a high school coach gets this. Or I'm going to leave you with a John Wooden saying.
Mm.
This is best. Everybody knows who John Wooden is. He said, you have three elements to your team. You have 12 players. You got your first six players. And then you've got your 7 through 9 and your 9 through 12. Well, the 9 through 12 guys are always going to find reasons why they're not playing, right? It
Hmm.
is your job as a coach to convince the 6 through 9 or the 7 through 9 players to go with the 1 through 6 rather than the 10 through 12. And if you can do that and build those 12 guys together, you're one hell of a coach. So I'll leave you with that, something to chew on.
Awesome. Thank you, Coach. And I will make sure to reach out to you again to kind of plan on this next episode. I'm super excited.
Good. And you guys will get it done. Thank you.
Thank
Awesome.
you,
Thank you,
Coach.
Coach.
All right. Bye-bye.